With only around 6 years in service and installed on more than 500 aircraft, you'll likely find yourself in American Airlines' current domestic first-class seat if you fly the airline on many of its short and medium-haul routes. Welcome to Fly Guys. Join me as I review American Airlines' domestic first class across 4 short and medium-haul flights on its Boeing 737-800 and Airbus A321 aircraft. This whole trip takes me from Atlanta to Las Vegas and back, connecting through Phoenix on the way there and Dallas on the way home. The longest flight is from Atlanta to Phoenix at just over 3.5 hours, while the shortest is the quick hop from Phoenix to Las Vegas, taking less than an hour. Since 2 of the 4 flights are over 900 miles, we'll also get to review the first-class meal service. At Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, American Airlines operates out of the North Terminal, and flights typically depart from Concourse T, the first concourse you'll reach after passing through security. You'll find the airline's check-in counters and self-service kiosks at the far end of the terminal. Since Atlanta is neither a hub nor a base for the airline, most, if not all, flights from here first take passengers to one of American Airlines' hubs, where they can connect to their final destination. Anyway, check-in was quick and easy, and a friendly agent had me on my way to security in no time. American Airlines operates an Admirals Club at the airport, which opens at 4:30 a.m. Unfortunately, flying first class on a short or medium-haul domestic flight doesn't include lounge access. Since I had some time to spare, I made the trek over to Concourse E to visit the American Express Centurion Lounge instead. If I timed it correctly, it takes about 6 minutes from boarding the plane train after security to arriving at Concourse E. I've reviewed this lounge before, and I'll leave a link to that video in the description below. If you're new here and find this video informative or helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you could give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Back at the gate, boarding began 40 minutes before our scheduled departure time of 8 a.m. Our flight time is estimated to be 4 hours and 10 minutes, and our ETA into Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport is at 9:10 a.m. Welcome to seat... Well, not quite. Someone else was already sitting in my assigned seat. As it turned out, another passenger was sitting in their seat, and that person's assigned seat was occupied as well. Long story short, the airline had mistakenly assigned one passenger the wrong seat, setting off a chain reaction that left 3 other passengers, including me, without our assigned seats. Anyway, it was resolved pretty quickly, and no hands were thrown during the incident. I actually filmed this next clip after the flight, but welcome to Seat 4A, American Airlines' roughly 6-year-old domestic first-class seat on the Airbus A321. Seat 4A is a window seat and one of 20 first-class seats arranged across 5 rows in a 2-2 configuration. The seat is 21 inches wide and offers 37 inches of pitch. Given my smaller frame and height, I've never really had any complaints about space or legroom in a premium seat, but I could definitely tell that this wasn't as wide or spacious as the Alaska Airlines 737 MAX first-class seat I most recently flew in from Atlanta to Seattle. I'll post a link to that review in the description below for those who are interested. In front, you'll find a literature pocket for the safety card and other onboard materials, a mobile device holder, a USB port, and a small storage pocket near the bottom. The seats on both the Boeing 737-800 and Airbus A321 are virtually identical, and we'll take a closer look at their features throughout this review.
Airlines flight on its way to one of our many destinations across the globe, made possible by our dedicated team members who all do it for one reason: you. That's why your safety and well-being are so important to us. Let's go through some in-flight instructions so we can get you safely on your way.
The rest of the boarding process went smoothly. The crew offered first-class passengers a choice of water or orange juice as a pre-departure beverage, but I decided to pass. The captain then welcomed everyone aboard and announced a flight time of 3 hours and 45 minutes, with only some light shop expected along the way. We pushed back from the gate right on time at 8 a.m. and were airborne within 5 minutes. The seatbelt sign was actually turned off about 5 minutes after takeoff, but it came back on shortly afterward due to some light chop. Even so, the cabin crew continued serving drinks, and I received my ginger ale about 35 minutes after the service began. While waiting for my meal, let's take a look at some of the seat's features. Where a seatback monitor would normally be, American Airlines has instead installed a device holder that can accommodate a smartphone or a small tablet. The tray table folds out from the side armrest. You can use it fully extended during meal service or when working on a laptop, or keep it folded in half to hold a drink. You can also prop up a tablet against the built-in backrest that's revealed when the tray is folded. And yes, although most of the cabin appeared clean, the tray table was noticeably dirty. The center armrest houses a small fixed tray table, a smaller pop-out tray in the middle, a padded armrest, the seat recline button, and a small storage compartment and the charging port beneath the armrest. The seat's padding didn't look particularly substantial, but it was actually quite comfortable, and it even felt like there was some built-in lumbar support. The seat also features an adjustable headrest with foldable side wings. Meal service is available on flights over 900 miles during meal times, and you can reserve your meal up to 30 days before your flight. For this flight, the options include a charcuterie plate, a vegetarian fruit and cheese plate, a 3-cheese omelette, as well as special meals to accommodate dietary restrictions. I reserved my meal in advance and chose the 3-cheese omelette because I wanted a hot meal. It was served about 20 minutes after I received my drink, presented on a single tray with a side of fresh fruit. The omelette itself was nothing extraordinary, but surprisingly it wasn't bad either. I was just happy that it was actually served hot. The bread was served later and I got what looked like a croissant. Unfortunately, it wasn't very good. Naturally, after some clips of the meal comes a video of the lavatory. There's not much to report here except that it's expectedly small. It wasn't spotless, but it also wasn't filthy. As I pointed out earlier, American doesn't offer seatback entertainment, which still blows my mind, but it does allow you to stream entertainment on your own device. There's movies, TV shows, live TV, kids entertainment, sports, streaming music through Apple Music, and free Wi-Fi sponsored by AT&T. Anyway, the in-flight card also includes information about other food and drink options. Here's a screen recording of the in-flight entertainment content. If you're not interested in browsing the available options, you can skip ahead about 2 minutes. For the rest of the flight, the crew came through the cabin a couple more times to check on passengers and see if anyone needed anything. Otherwise, everyone was just whiling away the time. After just over 3.5 hours, we began our descent into Phoenix. Overall, my experience on this first flight was actually not bad. It was a noticeable improvement over my previous experiences flying American Airlines domestic first class, and it left me hopeful that the airline might finally be turning a corner. The seat was comfortable enough. The cabin was relatively clean. The crew were efficient and friendly. The food was served hot and was passable. The Wi-Fi was free. And the flight itself was smooth and pleasant, which in the end was what mattered most to me. But will this positive improvement in my overall experience of my first flight carry through to the other flights on this trip? Keep watching to find out. I had a 5-hour layover in Phoenix, which gave me plenty of time to check out both the American Express Centurion Lounge and the Chase Sapphire Lounge. You can watch my reviews of both lounges here on my channel, and I'll include links to them in the description below. Let me just give a shout out to the team behind the American Airlines app for adding this incredibly useful feature. It shows you exactly how far your departure gate is from your current location in the terminal, which meant I could stay in the lounge with confidence until it was almost time to board, then head to my gate knowing I'd get there just as boarding was about to begin. Pretty neat. Boarding for my second flight started 30 minutes before our scheduled departure time of 1:35 p.m. Our flight time is estimated to be 1 hour and 13 minutes, and our ETA into Las Vegas Harry Reid International Airport is at 2:48 p.m. Welcome to Seat 3F, American Airlines' domestic first-class seat on the Boeing 737-800. Seat 3F is a window seat and one of 16 first-class seats arranged across 4 rows in a 2-2 configuration. Aside from the noticeable differences in the aircraft cabin, as well as the seat cushion shape and stitching, this seat is virtually identical to the one on the A321. It has the same advertised seat width and pitch, along with the same features, including this USB port, which I wasn't able to show clearly on my first flight. Given that this was a pretty short flight, I appreciated that the in-flight snack, a bag of mixed nuts, had already been placed on our seats. Not only does this ensure that first-class passengers receive a snack, but it also makes the in-flight drink service easier for the cabin crew. The boarding process went smoothly. The crew offered pre-departure drinks, and I had some ginger ale. The captain welcomed everyone aboard and announced a flight time of 48 minutes. We left the gate on time at 1:35 p.m., but were pretty much at a standstill on the tarmac for around 10 minutes with no explanation. But we eventually started moving again and took off at around 1:50 p.m. It was pretty choppy on the way up, and that became the theme for the rest of the flight. About 15 minutes after takeoff, the seatbelt sign was actually turned off, but it came back on shortly afterward and remained turned on for most of the rest of the flight. With that said, the cabin crew still carried out a drink service. They announced that they would be doing a quick service in economy with no hot beverages due to the intermittent turbulence and the very short flight time. Up front, the service was handled just as efficiently. I got another ginger ale which was served about 15 minutes after takeoff, even though I was seated in the third row. It was worth noting though that we were given plastic cups this time, as opposed to my previous flight where the drinks were served in glassware. Even though it was choppy, the views outside on this flight were amazing, and before long we were already on our descent into Las Vegas. For such a short flight and with the on and off turbulence, the crew managed to handle the flight really well. The experience of flying this very short domestic first-class flight on American Airlines was by no means bad, but it was also not particularly memorable. It's always great to be able to fly in a wider and more spacious seat, but I'm not sure it made much of a difference on a flight this short. If I had to pay for this leg separately, I probably wouldn't have thought twice about flying in economy. I stayed in Vegas for a week and was able to check out 3 hotels during this trip, including the Waldorf Astoria hotel that I recently reviewed. Please make sure to check that out. After a week in Vegas, it was time for my next 2 flights in American Airlines' domestic first class. At Harry Reid International Airport in Las Vegas, American Airlines operates out of Terminal 1, with flights typically departing from the D gates. I arrived at the airport really early, around 4 a.m., and there was barely anyone at the American Airlines check-in counters. I was helped right away and checked in within minutes. American Airlines does not operate an Admirals Club in Vegas. Not that I would have been able to enter with my domestic first class ticket anyway, but it didn't really matter because I was actually looking forward to checking out the lounges here, including the American Express Centurion Lounge, the Capital One Lounge, and the fairly new Chase Sapphire Lounge. Please stay tuned for my reviews of these lounges coming up in the next few episodes. Boarding for my third flight started 40 minutes before our scheduled departure time of 7:15 a.m. Our flight time is estimated to be 2 hours and 54 minutes, and our ETA into Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport is at 12:09 p.m. Welcome again to Seat 4A, the exact same Airbus A321 first class seat I had on my first flight from Atlanta to Phoenix. For some reason, compared to my first flight on the A321, this seat's padding seemed thinner this time and offered practically no lumbar support. I'm pretty sure it's mostly a me issue, but who knows. Although the seats are the same, this one didn't actually have a working power outlet. Maybe I should have mentioned it, but I didn't bother telling the crew since my laptop was fully charged. As with my two previous flights, the plane looked clean for the most part, but if you looked closely, you could spot a few cleaning issues, like this dried up liquid stain on my armrest. We pushed back from the gate 1 minute ahead of schedule. The boarding and pre-flight experience on this flight was slightly different from my previous two flights. The cabin crew served a pre-departure drink of orange juice or water, but only once the aisle had cleared. Unlike on my previous flights where the crew were weaving through boarding passengers to offer drinks. I don't always accept a pre-departure drink when it's offered, but if I do, I'd probably prefer to have it as soon as I'm seated. Another difference I noticed during the pre-flight routine was that there was only one crew member conducting the safety demonstration for both the first class cabin and the front of the main cabin, moving back and forth between the two sections as she demonstrated the safety procedures. Anyway, the plane took off at 7:25 a.m., roughly 10 minutes after we left the gate. As we were passing over the Hoover Dam, the captain called everyone's attention to it, especially those seated on the left side of the plane. The cabin crew on this flight were very friendly and appeared to be more senior than the crews on the previous two flights I took the week before. They began the meal service by taking food orders and confirming the ones from passengers who had pre-ordered. This was followed by a towel service and then the drinks. This was the only one of the 4 flights where I was given the entire can for my drink, which I thought should have been the case throughout the whole trip. Similar to my first flight, I reserved my meal in advance this time and once again chose the hot breakfast option, a roasted vegetable frittata. The other options included a vegetarian fruit and cheese plate and a smoked salmon platter. The selection of special meals remained the same. Compared to the hot meal on my first flight, this one was actually significantly better. The frittata was flavorful, it looked presentable, and even the potatoes seemed happier here. I finished my meal in about 15 minutes, and my tray was cleared promptly. Let me just note that I was the only one with my window shade open for most of the flight, including during the meal service. I don't even remember the cabin lights being turned on, as I clearly remember the crew moving around and serving passengers in a dark cabin. I really don't understand why so many people prefer to keep their window shades closed, especially on a morning flight, unless there's glaring sunlight. If you want to sleep, just put on an eye mask. Don't even get me started on airlines or crews that insist on keeping the window shades closed when it doesn't make sense because of the time of day or the time change. Often, it just feels like a way to encourage people to sleep and minimize the amount of service. That's one of the reasons I always try to get a window seat. Flying in a confined metal tube is claustrophobic enough as it is. Anyway, after a little over 2 hours, we started our descent into DFW. Up to this point, this flight had the best service of the trip. The flight crew were excellent. The captain kept passengers informed throughout the flight, especially as the weather wasn't ideal, making sure everyone felt comfortable and safe as we navigated through the different weather systems. You could also tell that the cabin crew had more experience. The level of service was simply different. There was an ease and confidence in the way they carried out their duties. The food was also better, both in terms of flavor and presentation. Unfortunately, not everything went well. The hard product was the letdown this time. The seat seemed less padded, though again, that could just be me. But the power outlet wasn't also working. Overall, the best flight out of the 3 so far on this trip. I had a 3-hour layover in Dallas and tried to squeeze in as many lounges as I could. I managed to check out the American Express Centurion Lounge, the Capital One Lounge, and the newly opened Plaza Premium Lounge. I'll be posting reviews of all 3 lounges on my channel soon, so stay tuned. Three hours really isn't long enough to lounge hop, and before I knew it, I had to leave and take the Skylink to my gate in Terminal C. Boarding for my 4th and final flight on this trip started 35 minutes before our scheduled departure time of 3:50 p.m. Our flight time is estimated to be 2 hours and 12 minutes, and our ETA into Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport is at 7:02 p.m. Welcome again to C3F, the exact same Boeing 737-800 first class seat I had on my second flight from Phoenix to Las Vegas, except that this one is filthy. It was so dirty that I didn't want to sit on it until I had cleaned it. If you look closely, there are several different surface stains on the seat, which could easily transfer onto my clothes if I sat down. American Airlines really had to drop the ball on my last flight. I had a pretty decent run with them up to this point. Anyway, while rummaging through my backpack for some wet wipes, one of the cabin crew came by to offer pre-departure drinks and noticed that I was still standing by my seat. I explained what had happened and they promptly went back to the galley and returned with a thick wad of paper towels. They had even moistened some with warm water while leaving the rest dry so I could wipe down and dry the seat. I remember thinking to myself how very conscientious of them. We pushed back from the gate a few minutes ahead of schedule. Other than my seat issue, boarding went pretty smoothly. The cabin crew offered pre-departure drinks, and the captain welcomed everyone aboard. He announced a flight time of 1 hour and 45 minutes, said that we would be cruising at 37,000 feet, and mentioned that there may be a few bumps as we got closer to Atlanta. Around 20 minutes after takeoff, the crew came through the cabin taking drink orders and addressed each first-class passenger by their last name. I was actually pretty impressed. Similar to my third flight from Las Vegas to DFW, the cabin crew on this flight seemed more senior and really showcased their years of experience. After the drinks were served, the crew came around with a basket of snacks. I just grabbed one bag of Kettle brand potato chips, even though we were told we could take as much as we wanted. The crew offered snacks twice during the flight, and regularly checked to see if anyone wanted another drink. A little over an hour and a half later, we started our descent into Atlanta. This flight went by pretty quickly, maybe because I was ready for the trip to be over. Other than the seat cleanliness issue, which is still mind-boggling considering we were at their home base, this flight felt very similar to the one before it, except that there were no hot meals served on the shorter flight. Before landing, the lead crew member came around and thanked each first-class passenger for flying with the airline. I was half expecting some acknowledgement or apology regarding the condition of my seat, but I didn't get one, which was fine. It was just a small blemish on what was otherwise amazing service. So what are my overall thoughts on American Airlines' domestic short and medium haul first class on the Boeing 737-800 and Airbus A321? Before this whole trip, I had actually flown American Airlines first class many times before, and although my first impression was that the cabin lacked character and felt somewhat bland, I thought the light-colored interior, contrasted with the gray seats, looked modern and premium, giving the cabin a clean, spacious, and airy feel, and that's still how I feel about it today, but more so on the A321 than the 737. The seats were fine for the most part, although I do wish they had seatback entertainment screens. I'm not sure if every seat has the same amount of padding, but I definitely felt that some were more comfortable than others. The hot meals were hit or miss, although nothing was downright gross or inedible. The cabins weren't spotless, but they were about what you'd expect in terms of cleanliness on domestic flights these days. That filthy seat on my last flight was inexcusable though, but it also seemed to be the exception rather than the norm. What really made flying with the airline more pleasurable though was the flight and cabin crew. I don't think I encountered a single disengaged or unprofessional crew member throughout the entire trip. Everyone was professional, friendly, and efficient. Overall, I would fly American Airlines domestic first class again if the fare or mileage redemption was reasonable, especially on longer flights. Otherwise, it's not a product I would go out of my way to book. I couldn't help but compare it to my most recent Alaska Airlines domestic first-class flight on the 737 MAX from Atlanta to Seattle, where the first-class cabin was more spacious, the seat was wider, the aircraft was noticeably newer, the food was more refined, and the overall experience was simply better. I'll post a link to that review in the description below for those who are interested. Thank you for watching and safe travels. Please make sure to like and subscribe.